Hi guys, my name is Irina. Welcome to my channel. My last video was all about how I got into dental school with a 3.0 and just being a well-rounded applicant. However, the beginning of that video was don't fall into this trap if you can prevent it, because GPA is really important and showing that you can handle the rigor of dental school is very important. And on the other side of that, there was a lot of schools that didn't believe that I could handle the rigor because of my GPA and my DAT score that wasn't like amazingly high. And then a little backstory on my GPA in undergrad. I did very poorly my first semester and in orgo. So orgo, I retook both of them, honestly. And I'm gonna make a video because I learned a lot on how to learn orgo that I don't think anyone tells you. There was a lot of little things that I started implementing looking back that I didn't realize that I was doing in the time, but it was little things that added up to getting mostly A's and B's in those classes. And while I wouldn't change anything that I did, I got very lucky as well. There's a lot of people in my same position who probably deserve it just as much and didn't get in. The point being, get good grades. Avoid that possibility if you can. Today I'm just gonna give you some tips on how to do that, okay? The first one, really quickly, don't underestimate your easy classes. I think every major has them. I was a business major and I took my prerequisite classes in science as well. Definitely had some easier classes. I remember some of them, I was like, okay, I don't have to do that much for this class. I can focus on my harder classes. And while that is true, you still have to make sure that you're doing what you need to do to get an A in that class. So I think what I would do was set aside time for those easy classes, 3 hours of the week, and just do everything I needed to do for that class for the week and be done with it. And then put more brain power into the other classes. Those classes are good to focus on the days that you just can't focus or are unmotivated, and if it's quote unquote busy work, or if you kind of want to have a chill night but also get stuff done and want to watch TV while you're doing stuff for that class, if it's one of those classes. But just be smart about that and don't be like, oh, it's so easy, I don't have to do anything. Every A helps you. Someone said that to me once and it really stuck with me, and I was just like, okay, just go for the A. Second big one, this one I wish so badly that I did practice more in undergrad, because I did the opposite of this, and that's to over prepare for your first exam. And there's two big reasons for this. One, you have no idea what it's going to look like. You don't know how the professor writes their exams. It could be crazy hard for no reason. And you just want to be sure that you're over prepared. And you don't want to go there and be surprised with oh my god, I wish I studied more. So, I mean, you never want to be like that. But the first test specifically, the first project, paper, anything that you're getting graded on, big thing, just prepare as best as you can. You would rather coast on a high grade for the rest of the semester than have to be making up for that low grade the rest of the semester, because I did the latter and it was a pain. I also feel your motivation is so much higher in the beginning of the semester than the end. And then after the first test, you can kind of judge a little bit more on how much you need to do, what you need to fix to study best for that class. Third thing is, if you didn't get above a 95 on your test paper project, talk to the professor about what you missed, or at least take the time to go over and make sure that you learned. You still learn the things that you miss. That's really important, especially if you have a cumulative final exam. Organic chemistry, I really screwed myself over for these ones because I was like, oh, I don't know this, I'll learn it later. Took the test, got them wrong because I didn't know them, and then never learned it again because I was like, the test is over, on to the next. Take the time and just take an hour. Just set an hour to either go to the professor's office if you have to, or sit down and make sure that you learn those questions that you got wrong, especially if you got a 70. It's really important to actually see what you got wrong. Also, this is important because most likely some of the information, if not all of it, is adding on to each other. I keep talking about organic chemistry, sorry if you haven't taken it, but chemistry, biology, anything, it all kind of adds you don't want to like skip something that's going to make the next thing way more confusing because you never learned that thing. So just like make sure you're learning everything. Number 4 is one thing I actually really focused on that I was happy about in the end was developing relationships with my professors. Just asking them questions, because ideally they're not going to look at you like you're stupid for asking questions, ideally, but getting more comfortable with the professor, whether that be asking questions after class or going to their office hours. I went to my professor's office hours a lot. I ended up having good relationships with like a lot of my professors, like they knew who I was, and some of that was because I was struggling, but then others of that was just because like it showed them that I cared. I think that goes farther than you would expect, and I'm not saying it like changed my grades, like you still have to work for your grades, but professors were much more like accommodating when they knew you cared. The first time I went in and asked a question versus the last time I went in and asked a question, it was like 2 different conversations. Ideally, you want to make sure that you know what you're looking at, like they're there to teach you. Usually professors are in it because they want to help kids learn, right? So don't be afraid to go talk to them. Additionally, this really helped me for my letters of recommendation later. It felt easy at the end of school when I was applying to dental school to look for professors because I knew I had a relationship with a good chunk of them. This next one is very, very, very important. And I have really solidified it in dental school because we needed 90% on all of our exams to pass them. Aim for 100% on everything. And I know that sounds scary. Like I know that sounds unrealistic. It's like, how am I going to get 100% on this exam? Doing that in dental school, when I've always been like, I can't learn that much, has significantly, like, it's made me pass, because when I'm studying, I don't skip anything. So in undergrad, I fell into the trap, like I mentioned, a lot of skipping something to come back to it later, and then the test rolls around, and then you're like, I didn't have time to go back to it. Like, I never let that happen, and I've gotten way better now at planning out my time to make sure that I'm doing that, because it's very easy to have like the weekend before the exam and you're like, oh my god, I never learned any of this. And it's just honestly putting the hours in, making sure that you're actually learning the concepts versus just memorizing things to get right on a test. And like there is some aspect of that in all of it. Just aim for 100%, because if you aim for 100, then you're more than likely going to land in the 90s or high 80s. And having that on an exam is very helpful, especially if your exams are like a huge portion of your grade. Also, I feel like if you're aiming for a B, it's a risk whether or not you're going to land in the B or you're going to land in the C. And you don't want that. So just aim for the 100 every time. And I know this gets tiring and it's like, I can't do that all semester, but just like try, especially in the beginning, and just have that mindset of I'm not skipping any material. Like having that mindset in dental school is the reason I feel like I've learned all of my classes. Okay, this next tip is one of my favorites because I feel like it's like so tactile and so achievable, and like you could set it into place tomorrow. Catch up on everything by Sunday night. And, you know, some weekends you're going to have completely free, and some weekends you're going to be really busy and spending a lot of hours catching up. But like I said before, it's honestly all about the hours that you put in of actual focused work. So not the hours that you're sitting at the library on your phone watching TV. But this one, I think it also helps a lot with the looking at your exams and seeing what you have kind of skipped or don't understand. Next one changes a little bit throughout the semester. So this is write down exactly what you need to do to get an A in each of your classes. So like for my English class versus my chemistry classes, very different. I actually did this every semester and didn't realize I was doing it until later on. And I literally would just sit down, and I did this probably in the beginning of the semester, like probably after the first few weeks, and then tried to adjust it for each exam too, or after the first exam I would readjust and see if I needed to change anything in the document. But just like having this to look out for your whole semester, it's so helpful. Because you're like, okay, have I done this week in this class? So like for like a math or chemistry class, I would say like work on practice problems and actually do the homework fully twice a week. If I had to go to the tutoring center, make that happen once a week, if not more. Hardline, I have to go once a week. And just having those little small deadlines that you're fitting in your week doesn't require motivation at that point. You know, it just requires, oh, this is just something that I have to do. I mean, a little bit of motivation, but you just set like that hard line for yourself and you won't go below it. A lot of this video is that. Also, just having that mindset of this is just what I have to do, it helps it be less overwhelming. And then for English, it would be different. It would be like, okay, write the paper, start the paper by this point, go to the writing center by this point, and talk to your professor by this point. So you're not like the night before writing the whole thing. Also, side note, getting your professors to look at your papers before, if that's possible at all, incredible. A lot of times it's just keeping up with assignments, and then sometimes it's more brain power of how do I need to sit and learn this information. So like I'm thinking about like harder biology classes and orgo classes. Like biology, maybe I would say like make flashcards by the end of the week. Because personally flashcards really work for me. Just really getting specific about what you can do and what you can control, because how the professor grades your paper, you can't control. How the professor grades your project, you can't control. The questions that show up on exams, you cannot control. And that's scary, and that's why exams are hard. But how you prepare for it, you just want to make sure that you're taking control of everything you can take control of. Again, kind of the underlying message in all of this, but I also tried to give like tactile things that you can actually do to get yourself there. Last but not least is try to enjoy it. I know some classes are like, I'm never gonna think about this again. This is so boring. I don't like it. But then like if there are some classes that you are kind of interested in, try your best to enjoy what you're learning. You're in school, so you enjoy learning to some extent. I think you'd be surprised how much you can like it if you get into that mindset. And just like if you really like a professor and you like their personality or the way they teach, if you see any spark of that, like go full force into it and like really just try to enjoy that professor, because you're gonna have some great professors and you're gonna have some not so great professors, and you can learn from both of them. Again, that helps a lot with letters of rec for any graduate program, but even just barring that, it just makes your experience a little bit better, I think. Just put some of the personality into studying 24/7, because it's really hard to study all the time. So take it easy on yourself. Figure out what works best for you in setting those small goals. Like I said, the tutoring center really helped me in those really hard classes, because sometimes you just, like the way your professor explains things does not make sense. Like sometimes it just doesn't. Sometimes everyone's doing their best. They're doing their best. You're doing your best. And it's just not, it's not coinciding. And then you go to the tutoring center and someone teaches it to you in 5 minutes. Sometimes it takes a little bit longer and they'll still teach you and you'll be like, I have no idea what you're saying. And you do sometimes just have to spend the time with it as well to make it make sense. And then last but not least, I really want to say you're not your GPA only. You are so much more than that, and that's also what my first video was about. If you want to go back and watch that one, that'd be cool. School is important. If you're spending the money, education is way too expensive in this country, okay? US, it's should be illegal, if you ask me, honestly. You are spending that money, whether you like it or not, if you're in school. You do want to do your best, and I think every situation you get out what you put in. If you put in more, you're gonna get more out of your education, whereas if you just coast the whole way, you're probably not gonna learn that much. Do your best, but if like you fall short a few times, it's gonna work out and it's gonna be okay. Your worth is not directly related to your grades. I think that's not a lesson that we're all taught, and I think that's something that we have to severely believe ourselves. Just like taking lessons out of those failures too if you don't do well, being realistic with yourself and seeing what you need to adjust. I think, Remy, that is more your identity than your grades that you're getting. So don't be too hard on yourself. Do what you can. Be realistic with yourself. Set small goals, and you're gonna do fine, I promise. Hopefully this was helpful. Let me know what videos you guys want to see. This is fun, so yeah, I'm gonna keep doing it. If you made it all the way to the end, thank you. I appreciate you. I'll see you in the next one.